On Beyond the Case, we spend a lot of time studying people. We have participants from Harvard Business School's OPM program who end up breaking down decisions, debating the trade offs, and trying to understand what great entrepreneurs got right and what they didn't get right. Today, I have the rare honor of sitting across somebody that Harvard Business School chose to write a case on and to study. Not once, but twice. My guest today is Billy Jaime. He's the founder of MIA, which is a for-profit social enterprise and has built tens of thousands of homes for families living at the base of the pyramid in rural Mexico while trying to stay profitable and scaling. His journey has been compelling enough that Harvard Business School wrote two cases on him, and this was led by one of the most renowned and influential professors at HBS, Linda Applegate. And so this conversation is not about just analyzing a case, it goes beyond that. Understanding the conviction, the failures, and the responsibility behind decisions that most of us would seldom discuss in a classroom. Billy, it's an honor to have you here.
No, the honor is mine. So thank you for the invitation. I was very excited when you first wrote me and said that you have this kind of podcast because, as maybe we speak later on, OPM for me was a life changer. So it's an honor to be here and glad to share whatever. I'm very looking forward for the conversation.
Likewise. And Billy, so for listeners who may not be familiar with MIA, could you walk us through what the company does? What problem were you trying to solve, and where the company is at today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, MIA in Spanish means mía or mine. MIA is mía and in English is mine. And the reason, because I chose that name for the company, is that I want that everybody can be able to say, this house is mine, or esta casa es mía in Spanish, no? So that's the main principle. Let's go back to 2008, 2009, when I born and raised in Mexico, and Mexico for all that are not familiar with the country, Mexico is a 120 plus million country, people living there, and more or less 50% of the populations live below the poverty line. So that's like the environment. So this history began like back on 2008 or 9, when I was traveling all over the world, and for some reason I was in Angola and Mali and Burkina Faso, Central Africa. I experimented something that I have never lived before, which was like the damage that the poverty do for the individuals and for the people and so on. So I decided when I traveled back to Mexico, I started to travel all over Mexico, and I figured out that either in Mexico and basically in Latin America and a lot of other countries, there's like a backlog of housing that have like an opportunity to be improved. And especially in the bottom of the pyramid space, the housing used to be attended either by the governments or with in my opinion, with a lot of inefficiencies and with a lot of inefficiencies. And so what I figure out is that if I focus an effort like trying to bring an affordable house for those who have no opportunities to have like a formal credit or like a regular housing that are into the economic system, people who live in the hills and really manage a lot of cash if they manage some cash or so on. So I created this business model to attend them and to bring the opportunity to have a house for these families. So that's how I started. And I start creating a business model based on multiplying the resources, either from the government NGOs or the personal savings of these kind of families. I put all together and I bring the raw materials and I train them to build their own house by themselves with a professional advisory that we provide. So that's how we started. Then we start to evolve the product and the business model. And so far, we have built more than 70,000 houses all over the country.
Wow, incredible number. And I read the case that was written on you. You were working at a company at that point, Cemex, if I'm pronouncing that correct. And your role was to identify and nurture new business opportunities, to see possibilities where there was obvious opportunity for the company that you were working at through research and pattern recognition. That's what you did as your job, right?
Yes, exactly. Because what I notice is that most of the times, if you decide to be a social entrepreneur, you have to decide either to make some money or to make the right thing or whatever, like kind of philanthropy. And in my opinion, that's a mistake because you can do both. You can do, I mean, you can go to HBS to study. You can decide to be a high profile professional and make a business model based on bring some products or services to the bottom of the pyramid and make some profit out of them if you do it in the right way. So my philosophy behind that is that bet on the volume because as maybe you know, we live in a planet of 8 billion people living in this planet. So more than 4 billion are living below the poverty line. So if you are able to find a product or a service and create one single dollar out of this product or service, you can be easily a billionaire and you are making the difference. So in my opinion, if you do the right thing and try to create a business based on attending those who have nothing and betting on the volume, not on the price and not on the margin, but obviously with a right price and the right margin, but betting more on the volume, you can easily make a big company and a big impact all over your all over.
Absolutely. Very, very noble thought. And wow, what vision. So, Billy, when you were working at CMEX, you were researching different opportunities. You know, at HBS, they teach us about the difference between entrepreneurs who start from a personal pain point and those entrepreneurs who through research identify an opportunity. So, do you think somewhere that role at CMEX helped you shape your personality where you could recognize ideas and that gave you an advantage? Or do you think it gave you a blind spot when you became a founder?
Well, during my years in Cemex, which was like almost 9.5 years, almost 10 years, I had the opportunity to really understand how the business environment work and how the corporate environment works and so on. And obviously, I always had this idea to create something by myself, but honestly, my career within Cemex was upward. So it was always better and better and better. And at some point, I was invited to become the national sales leader of a new initiative. And so the decision to jump, to step back from CMX and start by myself was more based on this conviction that I have that this opportunity have to be pursued. And I can do it by myself with my effort, my ideas, and obviously with 90% of work and 10% of ideation. But obviously, during the I learned a lot from CMEX. Up to date, I have a lot of friends that are still working in CMEX 25 years later. So I think that there are different ways to be successful. You can either be an executive or you can either be an entrepreneur. Right? Both of them are super valid and super difficult. So you only have to decide. But obviously, I learned a lot during my past through CMEX.
And you mentioned that you saw a lot of people who were living below the poverty line at the base of the pyramid, right? That's what you call it. And you know, we have all come across that situation where I'm born and raised in India. I see a lot of that as well. But seeing that is different from feeling the urgency, you know, that empathy, saying, "Hey, I will take matter in my own hands. This is unfair. This is my responsibility." And so, how do you think your mindset got there? You know, were you always this way where you felt like taking matters in your hands if you felt there was something which was unjust?
I cannot say always, but obviously there was something that triggered me that this necessity to really become an entrepreneur, specifically a social entrepreneur. And what I think is that most of the people, a great majority of the people, really want. Are really empathic with the poverty. So if you see someone who is in highly necessity, we always try to like. But there are different levels of helping. You can get a dollar bill out of your pocket and bring it to these people, and you're helping, but you're not solving the problem from the bottom. I mean, help is always welcome, but if you decide to really make the difference, there's always a way to do big, to think big, and to do it like really strong. And that's what I decided to do. I decided to make it happen because, and I'm conscious that not everything that you start can be successful, or you can never be successful if you never start. So I decided to take the risk and to start like doing something 100% and dedicating 100% of my effort and my time.
And so, talking about that risk you just mentioned, when you decided to start this venture and leave your job at Cemex, you gave up about 75% of your income and you were married then, right?
Yeah, I didn't remember that, but yes.
What was your mindset like then? Were you nervous? Were you already financially secure where you felt, hey, this risk is nothing? I have enough
No,
money in the bank?
no, absolutely no. I have a 1 year old baby,
My,
my first one. So I obviously risked a lot by myself. I think there was two or three things that really helped at that time and are still helping. The first one is my wife, which really every single decision that I took, that I have take all over my life, she's like super supportive and say, okay, if you really think it, I'm with you and let's do it together. So that's, for me, it's a super important ingredient in every single entrepreneur life. Who are you partnering with? Because otherwise, half of your mind have to be like concentrated in another part, a part of your main objective. So in my specific case, that helped a lot. And obviously, I was super convinced that I have to pursue this opportunity, that there was a huge opportunity. And every person that I spoke with was like, okay, that is a great idea, super difficult. Good luck with that. And anything that I can do for you, please let me know. And I took the shot. I let them know. I say, okay, you can actually do something. So why don't you help me to introduce with this or that guy? Why don't you come with me to this meeting to like support the idea and so on? So one of the things that I learned in HBS is that in the model 3 of OPM actually, is that you always have to take the shot. If you have the opportunity, if you don't take the shot, someone else is going to take the shot. So the opportunities do not lose. Someone else take it. So you have to take the shot.
when we think about working with the government or the federal system, most people get turned off because it's just so much bureaucracy and red tape. But once you decided to start Mia, you also started approaching um, the social development secretary for funding for these homes that you were building, and you did that successfully, not just in one location but multiple locations with different government entities, which is phenomenal. Could you talk a little bit about how difficult it was for you or not to be heard, to be taken seriously, given the bureaucracy, red tape, and also the limited entrepreneurial experience that you had at that point?
Yeah, and thank you for asking because it's a very important question. But what I figured out during all these years is that every single square meter all over the world are led by some government. So you have to deal, if you like it or not, you have to deal with the government. It doesn't matter what you do, either for paying taxes, either for asking for permissions, either for whatever you do, you have to deal at more or less quantity with the government. That's what point. So you have to learn how to deal with that. With that said, the cancer of the government is not only the bureaucracy, but we have to say it clear, the corruption. In most of the countries, there's a high ingredient of corruption in all the processes within the government. What I figure out, and once again, I learned in one of the negotiation classes. I don't know if you have heard the example of the orange when you are trying to negotiating an orange, and the best way to negotiate an orange. Imagine that you have only one orange and two persons are trying to get the orange, no, because they both need the orange, and they both want the orange. The typical negotiation is okay. Let's cut it by the half, and you got one half and I got one half of the orange. But maybe you need the orange to make a cake, and maybe I need the orange to make a, orange juice out of the. So we divide the value, no, because you're going to throw out the juice and I'm going to throw out the shell, no. So if I understand your real interest, not your position, but the interest, maybe the best deal was, okay, you want to make the cake, so let's peel the orange and you keep all the, of the shell of the orange, and I keep the rest so I can make the double amount of juice. So with that in mind, I understood that negotiating with the government, I have to understand what was the real interest of the government. In the MIA's case, they really want to do their job. Obviously, sometimes they ask for some bribes or whatever, and I always say no for many reasons. If I do it once, I have to do it forever. Twice, it's not in my principles. Thirdly, what you really want is to multiply your effect, because at the end of the day, what you really want is more votes. So if you do your job in the next election, you will have more votes or whatever. And I really don't care about the votes. Help me to make this happen. And in the big event to give the house for the fight for the families and so on, you appear and you say the beautiful speech and everybody clap you, and that's it. So you win what you are really trying to win, and I do my job and people are getting the houses, and so it's a win-win matrix. So dealing with that, I start like multiplying that effect, and the government really, really helped me to grow. Once the NGOs noticed that I wasn't making corruption, I wasn't making I was dealing with the bureaucracy that way and so on. And the NGOs want to help that initiative and, add to the initiative. So this becomes really, really big and powerful.
I believe in 2006, there was an offer for the majority of Voltec to be acquired, and you had an opportunity to take chips off the table and stay under a much larger umbrella of a company. But you decided to keep your shares and walk away just by running the Mexico entity. Do I have that correct?
Yes, it's a funny story, and there's one part that you don't know already, and I will tell you because it had all to do with Voltec. So 2006, I received this offer from this super wealthy family in Mexico. Is one of the most respectful, most and I don't remember if they are like number 3, 4, or 5 wealthiest families all over Mexico, and so they own banks, they own industries, and they're super respectful and super powerful. I'm very grateful with that family, and they came to me and did an offer to buy the company, and they asked me to keep um, myself running the company now as partner of them. And after thinking about it, my first decision was to say no, and the reason is because I spent like almost 10 years in Cemex. Then I did this big step to become an entrepreneur. 2.5 years later, this family wanted to acquire the company, and put me on the front. But the leader of the portfolio of companies that they own, it's a professional manager. He's not part of the family and he's not part of the holding. So at the end of the day, I will become an employee again, with some shares, but an employee. So I say no. And the owner of that group, it's a person that I have very respect and for, and I'm very grateful with. Is Antonio Valle. He told me, "Hey, it's interesting. You're in your low 30s, and you're saying no to the opportunity to be acquired and run a company for us. Just curious, why?" And I say, for that reason, because after 9 years, this big step is one of my major steps, and I'm really liking making my own decisions and moving forward very fast and so on. And I don't want to be employee again. I say, interesting. And what's the formula that we propose to us to make it happen? I say, okay, I can manage making a partnership, but with the family, with you, with the real owners. And he said, okay, let's do it. So I partnered with the holding. And to be honest, looking back to that decision was one of the main decisions that I took at the time. And it was a real success because that gave me the opportunity to go in the day to day, seeing how they manage a really billion. Was at that time there was an 18 billion revenue company, the group that acquired me, and I was in the family office running the company on a day to day basis with the family members, and so I learned a lot, not only running the business for myself, but hearing and or in meetings with them and so on. And 2.5 years later, they acquired me again. So they were very happy, and they offered me to buy my part of the business. That's when I started Mia.
Congratulations. What a great story. And so at that point, why did you decide to apply to the OPM program at Harvard Business School? What were you
Well,
hoping to gain at that stage of your journey?
but it's a great question. I'm a truly believer of a continuous improvement, either personally or for companies or for the culture of the company or whatever. All over my life, uh, as you read in the case, I'm a civil engineer. Then I studied an MBA in Mexico. I'm working with Cemex. Working with Cemex, I studied the MBA. And then as an entrepreneur, I studied in Columbia Business School first. An entrepreneur program is a very short program. It's like a 9-month program called ECLA. And then I got to a business school in Mexico that is called IPADE Business School. We have a partnership with Harvard for presidents and owner. It's similar to the OPM, but only for Mexican. And that was, for me, that was my first step to like mind blow, because I start to understanding that I didn't understand anything else about businesses. So they start to teach me how to do my decisions on purpose, because obviously I have been successful with the company and so, but sometimes I say, okay, I did the right decision, but I really wasn't thinking that that was the right decision. I mean, the causes and the effects and whatever. So after finishing the IPADE, I met the OPM program. So without thinking, I said, one of my dreams was studying HBS. Secondly, I read about the curriculum of the program and so, and I was like, okay, I have to apply for this. And honestly, I will do it again and again and again. For me, it was a life changer for many reasons. For many, many reasons. I really did it, move the company to the next level, and I started doing something that, as of today, I have doing things that maybe I have never done if I didn't go to the OPM program.
Are there any takeaways from the program or any cases or any professors that still have stayed with you that you find yourself revisiting?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Linda Applegate was one of my top. Um, and the model of negotiation for me, as I mentioned before, was one of the best experiences that I have, because the during the sessions and the exercises and so, I figure out that there's so many ways to achieve what you want to achieve if you really think out of the box and so on. The human, the people or human resources, all the models that have to do with managing people, amazing. This Boris is one of the best professors that I have ever. I think for me that was like and obviously the marketing and all the models for me was have some value, more or less. But the ones that I have still in mind after almost 10 years of I'm OPM 50. So actually this year we have to celebrate the 10-year anniversary. So after almost 10 years, I still remember some lessons, and I'm going back. I'm a YPOer as well, so I'm applying to go back to HBS, to this program that have YPO with HBS yearly, which is kind of OPM, but it's a 9-year program and so on. So maybe this year I will travel back to Boston to one thing that I don't want to forget. I told you before that in 2006, when I sold Waltech and so on, these Ecuadorian guys sold their part and go back to Ecuador and so. The funny thing is that uh, 20 years later, well, 19 years later, because last year I did again an agreement with the same family in Ecuador. And now we're starting MIA in Ecuador. So since last year, we're starting to make social housing in Ecuador very successfully with the same family that I partnered with in 2004. So we started
Congratulations.
again.
Wow, what a journey. The cases that were written on you by HBS, by Linda Applegate, were they written while you were at the OPM program and discussed in front of your classmates, or was this much later?
Well, in the first model, you know that you have this, or Linda used to have this OPM idol contest, you know, which is like they train you to pitch your own company and synthesize what you really make and try to make an elevator pitch and so on. So they make this contest that, and Linda called it the OPM idol. And I won the OPM idol contest. So everybody heard about me, what I did, what I have done so far and so. And because of that, Linda decided to grow the study case. And during the model bot, she told me that she can't teach the study case during OPM 50 because of conflict of interest and so on. So we had to wait until I finished. And then she invited me, I don't remember, maybe 5 times to different OPMs to when she put the case in the in the session. I was like the invited speaker. Great experience, by the way, personally, professionally, and for my family, because in all of that sessions, I invited one of I have two sons, and each session I invited one of my sons, which was like maybe 10 or 11 years old, and now they are studying in Boston. So I think it was super helpful for them
Doesn't
to
get much
see what
better.
is really happening.
Now, what an incredibly proud moment.
Yeah, she's super. One of my favorite moments.
Is there a book that has deeply influenced the way you think, either about leadership or responsibility or life in general, that you find yourself thinking about?
Well, there are several. Prahalat, for example, make not only a book but some papers that talk about a fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, and the approach of Prahalat is like a Dr. Prahalat is a guy that really studied the behavior of the bottom of the pyramid. So I learned a lot about his philosophy and his the way he see the businesses within the bottom of the pyramid. And obviously, Mohamed Yunus, the Peace Nobel Prize, have a different approach. He said that these have to be more like in a way of NGO, that you have to reinvest the earnings, and you can create a very big company if you really attend the bottom of the pyramid and so on. So this combination, I think that Mia is like in the middle of the thinking of Prahalad and Dr. Yunus, because what we are really is we're making profits out of making business with the bottom of the pyramid, but we're making dividends, and we're like creating economy on a regular basis. With the only thing that the thing that we're doing is that we focus a lot also not only in profits and revenue, but in impact. So we have this measuring balance. So that's the difference of the two philosophies. And the other book that I really love is like Good to Great of Chip Collins. It's one of my favorite ones because it's like one of the quotes that I really love is like the worst enemy of the great is the good. If you're being successful, it's very difficult to think to go to the next level because you're doing the right thing, you're winning money, you're creating economy. Why why do you really want to change anything to go to the next level? And Jim Collins uh, really challenged that kind of thinking. I really love that.
How do you define a wise man?
Well, I think wise have to do with to be happy at so many levels. No, is how to manage wealth with family, with health, with a friendship, with a so the different types of wealth. If you're able to balance all that types of wealth, I think you're wise enough to for in my opinion to be considered as a wise man.
Thank you. Yeah. And my very last question is, if you could go back in time to the early 2000s when you were still working a job and maybe quitting the job to start your first business, if you could go back in time to that moment, what advice would you give yourself now that you know how life has shaped?
Do it. The best advice is do it. I mean, obviously, it's very common to say if you feel if you're afraid if you don't feel um, how do you say it? I'm thinking in Spanish. If if you don't have fear, yeah, thank you. If you don't have fear of your dreams, is my wife helping me. It's if you don't have fear about what you're thinking, you're not thinking big enough, no. So so making the big decision, it's always like challenging. So back on my early 20s or early 30s, it's do it, try it. So if you think that you're going to be successful, you're right. And if you think that you will not, you're right. So it will happen what you really want to happen.
Billy, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you very much.
Okay, no, thank you for the invitation and congratulations for what you're doing. It's very inspiring for me to hear all other OPMers talk about their stories and so on. And it's great that you're doing this. Congratulations as well, and good luck with the OPM program.
Thank you, Billy. Have a good one.
I can bet that it will be a life changer for you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.